Hello, welcome to the Cracks in the University Machine, Conversations on Academic Life. My name is David Lewin and I'm the host of this podcast. These conversations arise in the context of a simple observation that many academics carry a persistent sense of unease about the gap between what drew them to their academic work and what their academic work has actually become. That unease is rarely discussed in formal settings, departmental meetings, annual performance reviews, grant applications, and so on. I guess because the prevailing discourse does not really accommodate it. Maybe it surfaces in informal moments, over coffee, in the corridor, after teaching. But perhaps there is a shared sense that something is being lost or at least obscured in the contemporary university. Well, this podcast attempts to create a space for those questions to be explored openly. And it is my distinct pleasure to invite or have host Dr. Nicola Robertson, who is lecturer in education at the University of Strathclyde's Institute of Education in Glasgow, Scotland. I have known Nicola for a number of years, first as a student, now as a colleague, dare I say a friend. And I could call Nicola many, many things, many good things as well. Nicola is a polymath, an intellectual powerhouse, maybe a Renaissance woman would be a good term, an artiste, performer. Most of all, Nicola is herself. Welcome, Nicola.
I'm not quite sure how to respond to any of that. Hello.
Well,
That's a
you'll
very strange introduction.
get your opportunity
Yes.
to express yourself, of course, as we go into our chat. And so I've got some questions. You've got some thoughts, no doubt. So let's kick off. When you try to describe what you do to friends and family outside the university, what do you find yourself saying? And how close is that to what you actually do, would you say?
The easiest thing to say to people who are not in the university about what I do is to say that I work in an education department. And because I come from a really working class family and we live in a working class area, and that's when people hear that, they say, well, you're a teacher then. And then I just usually say, yeah, if you want, because it's much more difficult to explain what actually happens. So if I say something like, because I research in popular culture, if I say, well, I go to the cinema and I watch films and then I write about them, they will think, well, why are you employed at a university at all? What has that got to do with
Just
listening?
sounds like
I
having
don't know.
fun, right?
Yeah, they don't get it. Or when I say I'm going to a conference in this place, they think I'm going on holiday, which is obviously not the case. Um, Someone once said, so you get paid to think?" Which I quite like. When they say that sort of stuff, I say yes. The border agent in America said, "You educate people about education," as though it was the stupidest thing he'd ever heard. And to that, I also say yes. So I just, however anybody wants to interpret what they think I do, I just say yes, it's exactly that. And it's
Right.
teacher, writer, thinker, very silly person who watches
So
TV a lot.
you just adapt your answer to the context in which you find yourself, I guess.
Yes,
And you don't find that there's a
absolutely.
tension then, trying to kind of express something about the job that people don't make sense of or something. I mean, there's no sort of tension between what you understand your job to be and what you find yourself telling other people. I mean, you don't see that as a
I
problem,
mean,
as it were.
yeah, there definitely is a tension, but I think it's better to just diffuse it immediately and just let them think what they think is happening is correct. Because then you get into the intricacies of trying to explain exactly what it is you do every day. And that is very boring. I think a lot of people think that academics do things that are really exciting because most of their interactions with academics happen on LinkedIn, where they write wonderful things about wonderful stuff that they've done.
Right.
If you tell people that you sat for 4 hours in a ref meeting that was miserable, who's going to want to hear about that stuff?
Or 4 hours of
So,
emailing or marking essays or
yeah,
whatever. The day-to-day can be quite mundane.
yeah,
But there are
absolutely.
moments of inspiration too. Is that
Well,
fair?
there has to be. I guess
Yeah.
there has to be.
Yeah. What about the moments of inspiration in your academic work, in your teaching, your research, um your day-to-day work? What do you think is in it, what experience would you call genuinely meaningful in all that, in your day-to-day work? Are there moments of genuine, I don't know, profound meaning that you get out of it? And if there are, do you think that kind of stuff ever appears in like annual performance reviews and stuff like that?
Genuine meaning for me or for other people? For
I
me, I
guess for
suppose.
you, yeah, for you, yeah. What makes life meaningful, or what makes your work life meaningful?
I suppose I really like writing things. That is the number one. The favorite part of my job is being able to write things, but to write exciting things, I don't want to have to write. I don't enjoy giving feedback on things particularly, unless I can do it with some sort of panache, which
I've
doesn't
asked you
always
to do
happen.
that recently, and I appreciate your efforts, by the way.
um, if you're talking about peer review is different, of course.
Yeah,
Peer reviews
yeah.
can be exciting if the paper that you get to review is exciting. If it's really disappointing, then you start to lose the will to live after 5 pages. But I I really like I find meaning in being able to make my interpretations
Mm,
about education or the world around me when it's popular culture, and then being able to write that down.
yeah.
And I enjoy it if someone else enjoys it. So if it passes peer review and it gets published, then I know it's decent. So I find value. If we're conflating value and meaning, I find value in that work when I know that it's been reviewed by someone who's probably better than me at this stuff, I guess.
In theory.
But in theory, but but I also like. I mean, uh, having discussions and talking to people as well. I find
Mm,
meaning in that. When new people come to the university and you get to hear all
mm,
about their research
mm,
and stuff. I like that
mm.
sort of stuff. Does
Uh,
that come up in
yeah, well, I'm just
performance
so
reviews?
well, exactly. We're in the middle of talking about our annual performance review, and I'm just wondering if there's opportunities for that stuff, the stuff that makes the job meaningful, to be presented in those reviews, or does the review stuff tend to be, what ticks certain other kinds of box?
Uh, I suppose it depends on how you frame performance and contribution, which is what we call these reviews now, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Isn't it?
yeah, yeah.
So if if writing things down and having them published is meaningful to me and also ticks a box for performance, then that's good for me. It means that the meaningful part for me is being represented. But if that's not the same sort of meaning that comes up for someone else, then their meaning is going to be not represented. So maybe there should be something in these annual reviews that where someone is able to write the part of the job that is most meaningful to them,
Right,
even if
right.
it's
Well,
not publishing.
yeah, because it's quite easy in the performance review to, focus on the measurable, the performance criteria that, you know, I don't know, the ref scores, the citation indices and things like that. The things that tend to be, or grants that you get in, and the metrics, that's the word, to capture all that, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's quite easy to let that get carried away and maybe, not have opportunities to discuss what's really meaningful about the job.
Yeah,
Um,
I would agree. I agree with that.
all right. So you're now working in this, let's call it a discipline of education studies, although there's some dispute as to whether that's the right term. Um, what drew you to education studies in the first place? And how much of that original pull, that original interest is still present in your day-to-day life, your day-to-day working life, that is?
It's, it's a long story, but I'll try to keep it short.
Okay.
I was doing a PGDE at the University of Glasgow, which was not at all enjoyable. It was horrible. But I had all of these credits and I thought I should do something with that. I should do a master's degree. And so I came to Strathclyde to do a master's degree. But I was accepted to education studies and I was accepted to autism as well. So I had to make a choice. And I chose education studies in the end because on the course page, description page, it said philosophy of education. And I had gotten into philosophy when I was studying computer science. Uh, Anyone who's listened to the podcast I did for the Institute of Education will know it was a random going to the bookshop and pulling out one philosophy book, and that was it for me. So I thought,
Yeah.
I quite like philosophy, so I'm going to do this now, philosophy of education. So philosophy of education would be the pool. Um, and you have some responsibility for the fact that I still do that now, I suppose. It very much
Me.
does feature in my day-to-day work. Yeah, of course.
That's good. That's good that you say that it's still there. You can still, you don't feel as
Yeah.
though, I don't know, that is squeezed out.
No, I mean, and the meaningful part of my job, that which I've just described, the philosophy of education pool is still there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But
It, it sort of does go for it.
and as a whole, your day-to-day life, you feel there's still a good sense that that's still part of, how you work.
Absolutely, yes, for
Wow.
the
Okay,
most part. But obviously,
that's
there's
good.
lots of other stuff that we also have to do that's not anything to do with
Yeah,
philosophy of education.
yeah, yeah. Because of course this discussion is framed as cracks in the university machines. It sounds like there's the university machine is operating pretty well so far. Um, this is more of an optimistic conversation than I was anticipating. But let's see how we get on. Maybe things will take a turn.
I
Okay,
do
let's.
apologise. I usually have a reputation for being a pessimist, so I
I know you're
apologise.
being very very positive today. It's extraordinary.
Yeah, that's
Um,
good.
so you write, of course, and when you sit down to write, who do you write for? Um, and has that changed? And does that ever change? So we've got these other things that we're supposed to be writing for, ref workshops and stuff.
Hmm.
Has that changed for you?
No, I always and only ever write for myself because Kierkegaard said that we should only ever write for one person. Um, but also, I suppose in a way, when things come back after peer review, then you have to edit it, and you are sort of writing for an audience at that point.
Right.
You know that it's going to be seen by someone. But no, I absolutely and obstinately refuse to write for ref.
Mm.
I refuse to do that.
I
That
think
it
it's a
doesn't make any sense to me.
yeah, but you have admitted though. I totally recognise this, and it's a very nice way of answering that there's a kind of initial phase of writing which is inspired. I'm going to call it. I don't know if that's the right word, but anyway, is you writing to yourself. But then there is an editing perspective that comes on, and then you're thinking maybe about the journal readers, I suppose,
Mhm.
or dare I say, where this might fit in a ref narrative. But you probably don't. Okay, maybe you don't go that far, but you do think of other readers at the editing stage.
Yes, other readers of the journal. I
Okay.
mean, I'm quite terrible with peer review though, because I do often decline most of the suggested edits. I do.
Right, but
I always have a
you're
good
engaged.
reason, though.
Yeah, that makes sense. But you're always engaging though with the academic community. I mean, that's what it sounds like. So to be writing for the academic community is a very different thing to be writing for ref, which is quite
Yes.
reductive and performative.
Yeah.
Um, all right, brilliant. So we have all these metrics. We've got the ref, we've got student satisfaction, citation, impact factors. Sounds as though those things don't very much, consciously anyway, shape how you work. Um, do you think they do, though, nevertheless, penetrate your working life, those metrics?
Um, Insofar as they affect the institution, student satisfaction is mostly. I don't take any note. No, that's not true. That's. Let me rephrase that. Okay, so
The metrics of student satisfaction, maybe you mean?
yeah, if the institution changes things based on the metrics of student satisfaction, then it can't help but affect the way that I do my job,
Hmm.
because they might ask me to do some things based on the results of that survey.
Yeah,
But I personally don't look at those metrics at
yeah,
all. The
yeah.
same is true of ref. What was the other one you mentioned again?
Impact factor?
Impact factor, I don't even bother
Don't
with.
even know what that. I mean, of course, I suppose student satisfaction is a curious one because naturally we would um, maybe have other ways of interpreting student satisfaction other than the surveys that are the formal process of capturing student satisfaction. In other words, we are in constant dialogue with the students themselves. We have, you know, um, internal review processes the students write and have meetings
Mm.
and focus groups about modules. So maybe we're more attentive to those. Is that?
Um, yeah, I think so. I do read the end of module feedback stuff that students give,
Yeah,
and I will attempt to change things if they're not happy about certain things for the next cohort. It does seem a little bit ridiculous that they get to give feedback and then nothing can change for them, has to change for the next set of students. And if they're unhappy about things, I always tell them that they can just talk to me at any point. But apart from
yeah,
that, I'm not consciously soliciting views or
yeah.
um, yeah, thinking about student surveys and all that sort
All
of
right.
stuff.
Right. Okay. So, this next question is supposed to be, an exciting question and maybe
Okay.
a controversial question. It's a question about the tension between being a good colleague and being a successful academic. And of course, there are certain things that are encouraged of us, let's say, to become successful academics in terms of promotion. And are there tensions between those things and being a good colleague?
Hmm. Yes, there is.
Could you elaborate?
Yes, there is. Right. So, I mean, being a successful academic, right. So, being a good colleague means what? Being supportive, having a sense of community and unity. But being a successful academic, I interpret means um, thinking mostly about yourself and your own career and
Mm,
advancing oneself. Um, and if you're thinking mostly about yourself, then it's impossible to then foster a sense of community because everyone is then going to be in competition with each other all the time. So it can't help but be in tension with each other. I mean, I don't know what it is to be a successful academic, right? You're
we have
much
some
higher up
idea.
on this. I mean,
You have,
I can guess.
yeah.
I think I can guess.
Okay, so
Uh,
you sort of, is there a way we can, is there any things we can do to mitigate this tension or navigate the tension?
um, I don't think so. I don't think it would be possible unless we change the parameters of what it means to be a successful academic.
It's baked into the
And
structure
or a
of
good,
things.
yes, I think so. Yeah, I think so. I
Well,
mean,
we could, of course,
we
change the structure to some extent, but that's quite radical. Yeah.
you could be a good person, right? You could
Never,
just be a good person who is kind
never occurred
and
to me.
helpful to colleagues. You're always a good person, David. You don't even don't you don't need to.
This whole interview is just a ruse to get you to admit that.
Well,
So,
hopefully
so
no one ever sees it, and then I can still be horrible to you in front of everyone.
sorry,
Well, I
carry on,
think
please.
if you're a good person, you're always going to be a good colleague. If you invite other people to collaborate, if you show interest in what other people are doing, if you don't stand on top of their heads to get further on, then that's a good colleague. And it's probably possible to be successful and good. But I think most successful academics are not good people. I actually just read a post on Twitter that said academia rewards bad people all the time. They reward people for being difficult and horrible. It's the only
Yeah,
job where you would, apart from business, where you would be recognised for such things.
yeah. It's why one of my friends calls it academia. She couldn't
Nice.
bear entering into it and left to go into other pastures, different pastures. Let's just say
And is she happy doing that?
she's happy not being an academic. Whether she's happy
Good.
where she is a difficult question to answer. But anyway, we digress. Um, but okay, so yeah, so the there are lots of incentives, I suppose, and often it's framed around time. You know, there's limited time and resources. If I spend my time being a nice guy, helping people out, doing roles within the institution that support colleagues, rather than writing grant applications, publishing fancy books, you know, going here and there. Do you think it is that kind of tension of time? I mean, or is that even is that a red herring?
Don't you think that if you were collaborating more and helping people out, even just in your everyday activity, like if you're writing a grant application and there's someone else in the department who's interested in this but might not have the same sort of access to funding but could be really useful, that
Mm,
would then give you more time, wouldn't it?
yeah,
So
yeah.
a red
See,
herring, then, I would say.
yeah, you're showing them the future. Wonderful. Um, all right, I'm gonna move on to ask you about what you think a good student-teacher relationship looks like, and whether the structures of our institute make those relationships easy or easier or harder to sustain.
Yikes. Um, a good student-teacher relationship, I would always say, needs to have uh, certain levels of trust between the student and the educator. Um, they should be able to communicate freely. So, like,
Mm.
it shouldn't be limited only to the classroom. They should be able to talk. And I know that once again that question of time probably hampers that a little bit.
Because you
It
because
should
you
be
chat
more.
to students all hours, don't you? You're very open at chatting to students at various
Well,
times online.
certainly PhD students or PGR students, of course, I
Yeah.
will talk to on, like, almost as if they are my colleagues,
Mhm, mhm.
almost, with some very important caveats. So, but yeah, though I don't. If I happen to have my phone in my hand and a student sends an email, I'll just email it back quickly, even if it's a Saturday morning at 9 o'clock or
Mm,
whatever.
mm.
If it happens to be in my hand, why wouldn't I just answer it? But that's not to say that everyone should do that. That's just partly because I'm a little bit lazy.
But also,
Um,
sorry, you're in the middle of carry on. Yes.
I just think it should be open. Like it should be much more open relationship than maybe institutional guidelines allow.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That's my
I,
feeling.
and I also, because you've been a teacher in college as well, and the my recollection of school and college is that you often have more contact time with individuals and you get to know individuals quite well, whereas my experience in higher education has tended to be that you dip in and out of people's degree experience, but don't maybe have the
Uh-huh.
sustained contact with individuals to get to know them. Is that so? That for me, that's one of the things that I worry about. Is just simply the opportunity to get to know folk, because it feels like they're passing through quite quick.
Yeah, that's true. And also, they seem sometimes to be quite intimidated by us, which I don't like either.
Yeah,
You
I can't
know,
understand why.
especially,
Yeah,
yeah, I don't
yeah,
understand that either.
yeah.
So it's hard to then, even at the first time you meet them, you have to sort of break through some sort of defense that they've put up because they're a little frightened. But then, I mean, I was frightened when I met you the first time, so I guess these
That's why we
these
have
things.
that's why we have icebreakers. Although, of course, some colleagues hate icebreakers. But yeah, I mean, to create that atmosphere.
Mm,
I mean, I also complain about the physical infrastructure that we have in our institute. That it doesn't always create the best conditions for hanging out with students in a convivial way.
this is true.
But
Yes.
yeah,
But
all
we
right.
but we have managed to create something nice with PhD students that could easily
Yeah,
filter down into masters and bachelor students.
yeah.
A more convivial way of doing things.
Yeah, I think the particular relationship of PGR students is that it's sort of 1-to-1 or 1-to-2, or small group in the discussion. I suppose if you're an undergrad, you've got many tutors, and tutors have many students. It's a slightly different space. But yeah, in
Yeah, that's
general,
true.
I think I think there are things we could do. All right.
Mm.
Um, Moving on, do you feel that the language available in official academic contexts, like handbook talks about we have to describe learning outcomes, research plans, we have to describe research impact, we have these skill frameworks that are often used within the context, I don't know, of employability. Uh, all that language, all those frameworks, do you think they are helpful in describing what education is for?
Uh, no, I don't think so. I think it's just a way of trying to measure um, one particular idea of education in order that we can apply for more funding or more money or whatever. Because just the process of education itself is important. We don't then need to look at the impact of research. It's
Right.
really hard when I don't intend for anything I write or anything I research to have any impact.
Mm.
So it's hard for me to measure impact.
I
And
mean,
I don't think
you
we
want
should be
people to
aiming
read
at
it.
impact.
No, but you
Yeah,
want
I mean
people to
that's
read what you. Yeah.
yeah, but that's not how they're counting impact, though, is it? That's not how they frame impact. How these people who write these documents are framing impact. I don't think. I think they more uh, real world practical application when
Mm,
they think about impact. And
mm,
I just feel like if you have so much impact, there isn't going to be anything left to be impacted because
mm.
everything's just battered to death with all of this impact. Yeah, I hate it. I
That's
don't
an
like it.
interesting image. Now, you and I both share, I think, a skepticism toward the idea of learning outcome. I mean, the idea that you can dictate or describe what the result of an educational influence will be. Um, so, part of me wants to say that a learning outcome is is perfectly reasonable as a sort of general orientation to what you're trying to achieve. And I guess that to that extent, that's okay, right? I mean, or would you dispute? Would you depart from that?
Um, it's an explicit representation of the educator's intention, maybe.
Right, right.
Yeah,
That's a nice way of
but
putting it. Yeah.
but then of course, what are we going to do when we write that down? What it's only going to tell the student what we would like or what we intend for them to change
Hmm.
in their relation to the world. That's it.
Yeah.
We can't
Yeah.
then use that learning outcome to measure anything.
Well, of course, the
So then
assessment is
it's
supposed to demonstrate that the student has achieved those learning outcomes, and that's where, for me, it gets quite sticky. That the essay or whatever it might be is supposed to then be aligned to the learning outcomes that were described in the handbook. So I think that for me is the problem with learning outcomes is when we
mhm,
think we've achieved them.
that's yeah, I would agree because it's I mean the student could take whatever we've given them over the 8 weeks of the module and go in a completely different direction,
Mm,
and it could still be it's still valid educationally because they still have changed somehow or they've picked up something somehow, but it's just not the exact thing that we intended for them to pick up.
yeah,
Doesn't mean that education has failed, it just means it's gone in a different direction. So I agree. I mean, it's not useful for
yeah. I
measuring
mean,
essays against and stuff.
yeah. I mean, I'm not completely unsympathetic with the idea that we want to somehow try and measure what's taken place. Um, but yeah, it becomes rather strong. My next question is one that I put in brackets, Nicola, because when you glanced at my notes, you looked at. I think you said this is a silly question or a difficult question, but let me ask it and see what happens. If you could change one thing about the culture of your institution,
Mm.
not the funding, not the politics, just the culture, what would that be? Because I asked the question, and I'm not quite
Mm.
sure what it means either. What do you think?
No, I mean, I can't, I don't think I can answer that question.
I mean, it's a bit. Maybe it's a bit like the systemic problem we hinted at earlier, or tried to get at earlier. Um, Earlier when we were chatting about the tension between being a good colleague and being a successful academic, and that actually there's no sort of way to deal with that because it's systemic. And
Yeah.
maybe that's what the change in culture is inviting, a reflection on systemic change.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, systemic change, but also I don't know that systemic change will change people quite so much though. Maybe
Mm,
it's sometimes the behavior and attitudes of people that can make a culture difficult to be part of. So
mm.
maybe, but then yeah, it's difficult to know
And it's hard to know
exactly.
what. Sorry, yeah, it's hard to know what we mean by systemic change, I suppose, because of course, in one sense, you just thought that includes us as part of this um, institute. It's a tricky one.
Yeah,
Um, all right,
it's a hard question. Yeah, it's too difficult to answer that.
yeah,
That would take a long. I'd have to write an essay about that first, and then you can ask me later.
all right. So here's my last question. Um, is there something you would want to say to your younger self who's entering academia, something that the institute itself is unlikely to tell them? Some secret knowledge that you want to whisper to your newly entering colleague?
Um, yeah, people. I would probably say
No
that.
swearing, by the way.
Hey, I don't swear. I don't need to swear. I've got a huge vocabulary.
Very good.
Um, don't expect too much from people. They the people you encounter may be incredibly bright, but they're also uh, not very reliable often. So, and don't get too hung up on what other people are doing, because it's usually not that great anyway. Is that
Well,
terrible, isn't it?
well, every good. I remember hearing that every good conversation leaves you feeling sadder but wiser.
Yeah,
Which is exactly
I
how I feel
apologise.
after this conversation, Nicola. Sadder but wiser. It's been a delight to chat to you, Nicola, today. So thank you very much for your time.
No problem. Nice to talk to you
And
as always.
as always, yeah, enjoy your day. And thanks very much. Bye.